What is Isaac pogging about?
James Earl Jones played Mufasa. I didn't know that.
Oh,
You played him twice.
Oh my gosh. Twice, actually.
I didn't know. Darth Vader is Mufasa?
Wait a minute, James Earl Jones played Darth Vader?
What?
Hello there.
Don't have a good day. Have a great day.
Talk to me, Goose.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
Why so serious?
I could do this all day.
Are you watching closely?
Welcome, everybody, to the Wanted Film Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Mossberg, and today we're talking about the best DreamWorks animated... Isaac would say yes. Best DreamWorks animated movie.
I don't know if I would.
No, I know. It's up for much debate, but there's a reason Isaac's on the podcast today. Talking about How to Train Your Dragon, and I'm worried for you, Isaac. I'm worried that you were that kid when How to Train Your Dragon was coming out. Now, I don't think you were, but do you know what kid I'm talking about?
No, which is concerning.
I'm talking about the girl who had a crush on me, and she was all about Toothless. And that's one of the reasons why I said, no, I'm not interested in you, is because she was a Toothless stan, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, no.
Okay, good. We're past that. We're just appreciating the movie now.
I like it for nostalgia and music.
I actually think that's probably a big reason why a lot of people like it, is it was a good childhood movie. Are there other reasons besides nostalgia? Because I have some hot takes on nostalgia.
In my defense, this is the first movie I ever remember watching in theaters. I was in Queens, New York for my 7th birthday.
Wow. Okay. If you were pitching How to Train Your Dragon to a friend who has never seen it, what would you say to convince them that it's worth their time? More than your nostalgia. Your nostalgia is a subjective reason that isn't enough for somebody to say, yes, I'll actually watch it and give it a shot.
That's a good one. Gotta touch on the musical score, because that is incredible. Shout out John Powell. I would also say it's a really cool story. It's a cool story about friends, about unlikely friends, and how that can just influence you as a person, and also a father growing in his love for his son, and how that can change very drastically.
So themes and score.
Yeah.
I would say
visual.
Visual, yes. That was one that kind of was before its time in how it looked for the first one, and then just excelled the more it went down the line. I remember I only watched them for the first time a couple months ago. Really loved them. The themes really got me, especially the fatherhood theme. And I think I texted you and said I really liked the second one, and you're like, it's not the best. And I was like, but I really liked where Hiccup and his father, their story went, and the meaningful things that were said in that movie.
How about you, Zach?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised Seth didn't already mention the animation, because the animation is just so great. Especially as you go on in the movies too, like just rewatching the third movie, like I did, comparing that to the first one, it's just so cool to see how much it's even improved since then. I mean, the first one's already amazing, like the test drive scene and everything. It's just so well animated and so well done. Looks so cool, paired with the theme and everything too. And yeah, the animation and just the characters too, and just kind of besides just the themes in fatherhood and friendship, there's also some great themes about leadership throughout all 3 films as well. And yeah, it's just an awesome trilogy overall.
Yeah, I forgot about the leadership themes. It is heavy in what Hiccup should be and measuring up to his father. And he can't do that. He admits he can't do that. So he leads in his own way, and people got to get used to that. But it's fitting into shoes that he's not ready for or physically can't. And that maybe hits hard with our generation of feeling like we're not measuring up, and yet we're doing all right. We don't need to measure up, but we do in our own way. And I don't want to be like you don't need to put in any effort, because you absolutely do, but you don't need to hold yourself to an unrealistic standard, I suppose.
Well, yeah, even touching on that, like we see how Hiccup, spoiler, we got maybe 5 minutes into the episode before we're dropping spoilers. After something happens mysteriously, and then Hiccup becomes leader of the village.
We're gonna assume if they're listening to How to Train Your Dragon episode, they're not gonna be like, oh, I hope they don't spoil it for me.
His dad dies.
Okay, fine. So after Stoic dies,
Isaac!
He down.
Can't win. After that happens, we see Hiccup tries at first to do it Stoic's way. Like we see how he tries to be the no nonsense rough guy, but also super kind leader, and it doesn't work out for him. It's not that they don't respect him. It's just he hasn't proven himself to them yet to be that type of leader. And in realizing that, he changes the way that he is. He shifts gears, and that earns him their respect in a way that Stoic I don't think ever could have gotten. And as he said, Zach, it's a great movie in terms of leadership because of that, because it shows that just because one thing worked for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for you, and you can adapt and people will follow.
Along the same lines of themes, character development and story arcs. Did you know that those are kind of essential to a good story? You wouldn't know watching most of the content these days.
Ray?
Ray? And a couple other people, but...
Are there such things as story arcs? You sure?
We're introduced to what you were just talking about, the stepping into his own father's shoes one day. That's very evident from the beginning of the movie, where physically they're very different people.
I was just thinking in my head when he said, even though they're very different, I had that Gobber line in my head of, Excuse me,
barmaid. I'm afraid you brought me the wrong offspring. I ordered an extra large boy with beefy arms, extra guts and glory on the side. This is a talking fish bone.
Please cut that out, but don't have anything. That's ugly. That's the scene that popped into my head as you said that, and I could not get it out.
Yeah, it's right. But on top of the win that they experience at the end of the first movie, suddenly there's a loss. And now Hiccup is in the same position as Toothless with a handicap that they need to figure out how to work together. But also Hiccup thought that he found himself at the end of the movie, and now he's already lost something. That's the give and take. That's the character development. Imagine that, of gaining something positive but losing something in the process. It doesn't have to happen exactly that way all the time, but that shows that usually it's the loss of a loved one, and that's the second movie's kind of outline is losing somebody close. But the loss part, to give up a part of yourself to make it better, pruning or to graft new things into a tree, is to take something away first. And that's what makes a good character. It's not just magic. Oh, I get it now. I get how to use my powers. I get how to use the Force. I get how to use the power of all the Jedi. Sorry, we ranted about the sequels in another episode. Yeah, you can't just be good at something. And that is not only shown throughout these three movies, it's shown as Hiccup discovers how to use his handicap, and even down to Test Drive, where he is learning how to just get along with Toothless and even steer this crazy machine that he's made and working together with him.
Yeah, I really like Hiccup's arc throughout the first three movies. You know, in the first one, he isn't sure of who he wants to be. He knows that he doesn't really want to be what everyone's pressuring him to be, but he doesn't really know what else to be yet. And then he discovers Toothless, he meets Toothless, and he learns about this new way of life where humans and dragons can be together without fighting and without all the killing. And then he introduces this new way of life to, like, everyone in Burke, and then since he's kind of the one who introduced this whole new, like, world to them, pretty much, he's being set up to lead them. And then, like, through his father and everything, in the events of the second film, he learns that he can't always just be timid and just try and talk things out. Sometimes peace requires a fight, and sometimes you have to stand up and fight for peace, like we see him do in the second one. And then finally in the third one, we see him kind of learn that to grow, you need to let things go, and change is good, and letting things go can be good to, like, further grow into the man who you're called to be.
Yeah, sacrifice was another theme that runs throughout all three movies, both as a character, but also shout out to DreamWorks and whoever is really behind this. Them just being willing to sacrifice what they've made. Like, they had Burke, and that's gone now. They had Stoic, that's gone, and it wasn't in a cheesy knockoff way. It was like, it actually meant something. I won't lie, when I first watched How to Train Your Dragon 2 and How to Train Your Dragon 3, the two scenes that made me cry watching it was Stoic's death, and was when, again, spoiler, you should know by now, was when Toothless left Hiccup. Both of those scenes, it hit home of, like, they're willing to let something go here. And it was powerful. It moved me.
I think a comparison I could make is Mando and Grogu. That could have been done well. I think if Okay, let's pretend that season 2 is where they ended. They could have written the finale better and let Grogu's send-off be done better. But the fact that they keep bringing him back makes it pointless. So, yeah, it's holding loosely to anything in your story. That's even the point of I've heard writers and people who analyze stories say hold anything in your story loosely. If you need to give it up for the sake of a point or something, be willing to do that. And like you said, sacrifice is a good way to put it, with all the different things that are lost throughout the story. Even, again, right from the beginning, we understand that Hiccup's mom isn't there because there was an accident or something, however they put it. And so they have this less than situation where they don't have the mother figure until later, of course, but just plays out into those tones, those messages to be able to give something up and know that life isn't all sunshines and butterflies. There's loss. That's the loss I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, and even you talking about him getting that mother figure, again with sacrifice, and we touched on it already, but he got both of his parents back. I don't know the exact time, but it couldn't have been for long. And that's why I think, not only because we loved Stoic so much because he was such an awesome character and we got to know him really well, but because the story felt whole. He had both his mom and his dad. And then, his mom and his dad see each other again for the first time in years, and then they go and fight, and it's ripped apart from them again. I think that might be another reason, among so many others, why it's so moving and such a powerful thing.
And I think losing a father, especially as young men, is kind of a scary thought for us. And I think I felt some of that through Stoic and his death and how it affected Hiccup. I would hope, I don't want to speak for all of us, but I know my dad is a role model, and I don't want to think about the day that I lose him, but that's going to happen sometime. That's guaranteed. And it's going to hit us as young men more than we will realize. And I don't want to make it down in the dumps, but that's how the story went for How to Train Your Dragon. And it's tough. It makes you feel emotions. It's not just, the permanence of it. You know that in this situation, he's not coming back. It's how it's happening.
Dude, how Stoic's death is done is like so rare for a kids movie like that. It's just gut-wrenching. It's like there must have been so many children crying in theaters. It must have been just so wow. It's just...
Yeah.
Well, and the way he did it embodies what he's called to do as a father. He died protecting his son. He put himself in the line of fire. I'm thinking about the scene, and the more I think about it, the more it just gives me chills. But just the way that you could see in the movie the way that they animated it. You could see he had no second thoughts about it. The moment he saw what was happening, he knew he had one goal in mind, and it sucked, but he did it. And
it's even tough because he had to do it against Toothless. Even though Toothless was hypnotized, he had grown to love Toothless. That's kind of the theme of the first part of How to Train Your Dragon 2, is that they're kind of bonding. You've seen their love grow, and then Stoic knows that it's worth it for Hiccup. It's even tough because he doesn't even have time for last words or anything. And the way I know, it's very sad. You said the way they animated it, it gets very obvious he's dead. He's not trying to live. He's just done. It's well done for the emotion. And then Toothless comes out of his trance and he doesn't realize what he's done. That's also heartbreaking. Yeah. It's so sad. Man. All right. Enough of the sad boy times. Time to move on. You guys want to talk about women?
Oh my gosh. What a transition.
Hey, we gotta stop being sad.
What a transition.
No, actually, this was my next point. Okay, so when I was in little old homeschool, we went to a homeschool conference, and at that homeschool conference was a lot more capes and cosplay than I would like to admit. Not for me. I was actually a normal homeschooler. There was a lot of weirdos there. But I will say...
How normal can a homeschooler be?
You're looking at him. It's not that good. I know. It's not...
Normal ones have film podcasts.
Yeah. Well, at least I'm not wearing a cape. Anyways, at at one of the years of the homeschool conference, there was the teen track, I believe it was called, where there was a focus specific for the teens, and the theme that year was movies. And I was really into that year because I was starting to develop my love of movies. And they did breakdowns of movies and pretty much did what we do on this podcast, but over the course of a couple days and different sessions and all that. Probably a little bit more conservative. But one of the things that I remember specifically for some reason, because I think I remembered it because I had never seen How to Train Your Dragon, is they used Astrid as an example. They played that clip right at the beginning of her, I think they were putting out fire, and she turns around and flips her hair and is walking away from the fire in slow-mo. And they paused it and said, "Does that look like a Proverbs 31 woman to you?" And I was like, no, but... So, both with Astrid and Hiccup's mom, is it bad that they were portrayed as they were? Okay, that's a loaded question. It's not bad. Should we be applauding that as not a biblical view of women, even though I've struggled with this myself? I don't think it's a right answer that I've even come to a degree on. I just want to know how you guys see it as it pertains to the movie with two of the very prominent female characters.
Maybe... I mean, it's a different culture, so it's hard to hold it by the standards of the Bible. You know, it's based in mythology and all that, so it's hard to really point at them and saying they're not living by biblical standards when they're not trying to. And I don't know. I mean, I think God doesn't call every woman to be a housewife, so I think they're well-written. They're both well-written characters, way better than most of the Mary Sues that we see in today's... Better than our Rey or our Captain Marvel.
You are right.
Astrid in the first one, you know, kind of starts kind of like that at first, like she just can do everything perfectly, but then Hiccup comes in and it's doing everything better somehow, and then she kind of feels inferior and all that, so it's an interesting story there, but I don't know. It's that seemed like a really weird illustration at your conference to me. That's just
well, like I said, it was very conservative. So maybe it was even like, we don't like How to Train Your Dragon, and so we'll definitely use this example, pinning why Hollywood doesn't portray women biblically.
That's like pointing at any women lead character and saying the same thing.
True. So. I'm bringing it up because I remember it was How to Train Your Dragon that they used as an example. Yeah, it's not necessarily... I don't know that was descriptive of how Vikings actually were. I actually highly doubt that was the case. So it's a modern twist put on historical narrative.
I mean, they're Scottish Vikings with 5 American teenagers, so I'm not expecting historical accuracy.
I guess my point is, take it with a grain of salt, as you would anything. I'm not saying it's bad that Astrid and Volka are in the middle of war. That's fine. That's part of the character arc for both of them as their side characters learning how to love Hiccup. And it also it's not like they were trying to say all women should be in war and strong and fighting dragons and fighting kingpin-sized bad guys. But I don't know. I don't know what the message is there. Maybe it's just a lack of care and just be like, oh, yeah, that's how our characters are.
What do you guys think about the ending of the third one? Because I'm very mixed on it. I'm talking about the part with all the dragons leaving. What do you think about all the dragons leaving?
I thought you meant the very, very end.
No, I was talking about the dragons leaving.
Okay, because the very, very end is super adorable.
Yeah. Very cute. I'm going to be honest. It seemed to me, on the one hand, like them announcing that they're done with the world. They're not really going to touch it again. And this is their way of not having those characters still existing in case they want to come back, but it being kind of like a resignation of some sort. But also it being a very moving scene in character development, you could say. We talked about that theme already. I liked it. I hated it because it meant Toothless and all the other ones left. But I think it was pretty well done in the end.
I guess for me, this was the second time I've seen it. And both times, to me, it just kind of feels like a betrayal of what the story was leading up to.
Okay.
In a sense. I mean, it made sense for me for Toothless to leave to go be the alpha for all these dragons. But having all these dragons leave to the hidden world, it just seems weird to now separate humans and dragons again after they've, kind of learned how to live peacefully. We're just going to separate them again. And that just kind of feels like a step back and a betrayal of everything they've been setting up, in my opinion.
That's actually really funny to me because I think you and I are flipped, Zach. I don't think the whole story about him becoming like the king of the hidden world and all that just seems so rushed. Like there was to me it felt like the entire third movie was rushed. Like we suddenly get a big bad who suddenly appears out of nowhere almost right after the events of the second film that nobody's heard of before. Suddenly there's a light fury there's been no mention of ever, but people know about. And that Light Fury suddenly brings Toothless aware of magic Thor powers and takes him to a hidden dragon world where, because he's with this Light Fury, he suddenly becomes the king of all dragons. It honestly didn't make a lot of sense to me. It felt like they had a couple of different plot lines that they were trying to do and just mushed them all into one and called it good. I don't know, that's my 2 cents.
I see what you mean.
What are your thoughts, Seth?
I'm not as emotionally connected, so I didn't really see it as a bigger picture. I just saw it as a story, so I wasn't thinking about timing and pacing or thinking it was squished. I get Zach's point of it's all been building to unity. And it's not like they don't have unity, it's they still live at peace. Even when they leave on good terms. But yeah, I don't know. How to Train Your Dragon 3 was made in 2019, which might have been the start of the end of Hollywood, so I don't want to say that the story was ruined because of what Hollywood turned into in the latter years, but I don't know. Maybe it was a better conclusion if they had the conclusion be all of the dragons stayed and they coexisted together indefinitely. I wonder if that would have either led to a 4th movie or, I mean, it probably would. And we're still now we're like 5 years after. I don't doubt that they're going to at some point announce a How to Train Your Dragon 4.
Well, we got the
but I think it's less likely because they're separated now and there was a better stake in the coffin, I guess, of the story and having it end at the trilogy. I think by them leaving, it was more final. And if they stayed in the village, it would have been, there's more stories to tell. There's more adventures to go on. So
that is what I kind of do like about that, is that it gives it finality. They can't keep really milking the franchise with all the dragons gone. I mean, I think they still have made like 3 shows since then, but it's easier to like ignore. It's easier to ignore those shows than like a 4th movie. So
I suppose DreamWorks does love their TV shows, their spin-off TV shows. Yeah.
Well, let me flip the question on you, Zach. How would you have preferred it ended?
That's a hard question. I don't even know. I mean, I kind of feel like I still would have kept Toothless as the alpha, but I still would have liked the dragons to be involved with like the Viking way of living and to still see their lives connected. But I do understand what Seth was saying, though, is that it would be room for more stories and more movies and more franchise milking. So
yeah, well, and part of me wonders if they did that. That's how they ended the first and the second movies.
Yeah, it is.
They ended the first one with all of the dragons just now appearing and coexisting, and then they ended the second one with new dragons appearing and everybody coexisting and adapting to these new ones. I wonder if it wasn't in the writing room, but I wonder if some part of them was wondering like, hey, we've ended the last 2 this way. Third one, we're going to end with even more dragons suddenly appearing. Repetitive, but then again, you could argue that the series is repetitive. I don't know. I'd be interested, though, in what their reasoning was behind it as to making everything fly away.
I assume it was completion and a finite conclusion.
Speaking of continuing the story, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the live-action version of How to Train Your Dragon is coming. And I don't know anyone who asked for this, let alone is excited for this.
I mean, it has more potential than like a live-action Kung Fu Panda. That's all I'm gonna say.
I don't want it because I'm worried it's going to do what all the other Disney live-action remakes have done, and take something that a bunch of people loved and they were full of nostalgia for, take that and turn it into something different. We don't like change. I mean, if it's done well, if it stays true to the original, and if they throw in some absolutely banger visual effects, I might really like it. Will I go and see it anyway? Probably, because I'm a sucker for them. But
that's why they're making them.
I'm a little nervous that they're going to be a bit more explicit with Gobber's sexuality. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but he's subtly implied to be gay. So he's got a line of dialogue in the second one and a line of dialogue in the third one, I think.
But of course they're going to lean into it.
I mean, they've done pretty well with casting for the movie so far. So
I would disagree. Because Astrid is played by, she might just be Carmel, but a black girl. They're Vikings from Scandinavia!
With Scottish Vikings, it's already like ethnically ambiguous enough that I don't think a person of color bothers me that much.
It's that people are making a big fuss about it, so I have to make a big fuss about it.
Why? There's my question, Seth.
Seth's job.
It's my job to find problems with everything so that I can have content.
This is how we make a living, Zach. Seth finds controversy and makes us talk about it for his pay.
Yeah, pay. The live action How to Train Your Dragon is currently set for March 14th, 2025 release day. Looking at who they've cast for Hiccup and Astrid, they don't actually look...
You made a big fuss for nothing, Seth.
Well, they've been saying, they hired a person of color to play Astrid. And so that's the headlines I'm seeing.
And I heard that Abraham Lincoln said, you can trust everything you find on the internet.
Yeah. No, I'm sure that's her heritage, and that's good for her. I'm saying that it's a northeastern story. I don't care. They're not American. They just don't have accents because it's a kid's movie.
Well, why are they Scottish Vikings? That doesn't make sense.
Because they're Vikings.
They're not Scottish.
It's a funny accent. That's why.
Deacon had a point in Why Forced Diversity Doesn't Work episode.
Oh, yeah, sure. Bring Deacon into it. Because Deacon.
I will bring Deacon into it. I will bring Deacon into it.
Don't get mad at me, Deacon, please.
Regardless of what Astrid will look like or who she's played by, Americanizing any culture's lore or mythology is kind of not racist directly, but it's not respectful. It's making it a Hollywood version. And I think having How to Train Your Dragon take place in the Scandinavian area, that is their lore. That is the Vikings lore of dragons and all this medieval, not even medieval, it's their era. It's time period accurate, I would say, for a historical fiction, and leaning heavily on the fiction. But I still, it's back to even things like Frozen. Yes, Arendelle is a fictional universe or a fictional city, but it's still set in the Scandinavian area, so it doesn't make sense that there's people of color. This isn't a racist thing. It's just factual that in Scandinavian areas, there's more white people because their skin tones are nice and delicate. And then if you have a story set in Africa, you have Africans who look their part because that's how their skin tone has adapted over time. And so, yes, there's immigrants, but immigration is really an American thing. And so to have those characters out of place in a different culture in the movie, in a fictional movie, yes, but still in a fictional movie based in our world that has lore with dragons and Vikings, it doesn't make sense. I'm going to give it a pass, because I really shouldn't care that much.
And here's my thing, though, too. We never really know if it's forced. Sometimes it's forced diversity, but we don't always do. We don't know who else auditioned for the role, and we didn't see her audition. Maybe all the white blondes just weren't good at all in their auditions for Astrid, and maybe she, whatever her name is, I forgot her name is, she's from the last
Nico Parker.
Nico Parker. Maybe Nico Parker just blew them all away with their audition.
That is the thing.
That's how I feel with any of this.
She was Pedro Pascal's daughter, which means that she was Hispanic enough to be the daughter of a Hispanic, but she's white enough that she's a character in a Vikings-style Scandinavian movie. It's kind of an Oscar Isaac thing. Whatever he said that one time where he's diverse enough that he can be he can play multiple different cultural characters. It's kind of funny, but it's also like, I don't know. It's not Cleopatra being played by an African woman, and it's not that was almost heresy for a lot of even Egyptians. Were like, that's just straight up wrong. She was not Egyptian. She was not African. And then you have like Little Mermaid and the live action remake that's a little bit like meh. And then there's this one that's like, eh.
So I might take this a bit too far and jump over a line. And if I do, I'm looking at a picture, a side-by-side of Nico Parker and Astrid. And again, might be crossing a line with it, but it looks to me, it kind of looks like their face shape is fairly similar. Same with the guy who's playing Hiccup. There.
Okay.
Get mad at me, yell at me in the comments. I don't care. I'm just saying.
Face shape, sure.
I'm looking at it, and I'm like, hair can be dyed, makeup can change skin tones, whatever. Face shape, pretty similar. If she can get the voice down, who knows?
That, you have kind of a good point. I still think the hair is throwing me off, because I'll say this for even Hiccup, both of them have curly hair. And as a almost full-blood Scandinavian, curly hair is not a prominent gene in Scandinavian genes. So maybe I just need to see him in character. But they just don't seem to fit the part. I'm saying this about Hiccup too. Give them straighten their hair, and we'll see how it looks.
And I mean, I hate to drag Star Wars into this, although you already did, Seth. So, so be it. When Lars Mikkelsen was announced as playing Thrawn in live action, I won't lie, I was not a fan. I saw some of the stuff that they like the fan art for it, and I was like, this doesn't look right.
I mean, he looked like Elon Musk.
Yeah. After seeing how they did him in the live action, he looks pretty similar to the Grand Admiral Thrawn that we know. I think it just depends how the makeup and the rest of those fancy department thingies, how well they do their job.
I don't think we should ever judge like a casting. I think we need to wait to see.
We absolutely should.
What they can actually. No, Seth. Wait and see what they can actually
if we don't judge them, we don't have content!
We got plenty of movies, Seth! We got a full list of already existing movies!
How many more do we have, Seth?
We got like 50 on the list at least!
We have plenty of oh my gosh, we have plenty of content, Seth.
I actually want to count right now.
We have over 81 different ideas still on the board.
Yeah.
It's like
plenty of content.
It's like 75 when you add the extra spaces in the spreadsheet. Yes, you are completely right. We have almost a year and a half more of episodes planned.
We don't need the content.
It's for the content!
Unless you're doing this for click-throughs of people leaving us angry comments.
That's most of the comments we get. Thank you. Thank you for your angry comments. We appreciate that.
But as I was saying, never judge a casting. Wait till you see what they can bring to the role. As they say, let them cook. Let them cook.
Oh my!
I know you're
God.
right. I know you're right. But there are still some things that just aren't. They don't work. Cleopatra. That's an extreme example. We're gonna move on, and we're gonna praise it a little bit. Praise the movies for what we love about them. I wanted to note how big the dragons feel, especially when you get into the second movie and the first alpha. You feel the sense of scale, and I'm sure that if you watched it with the right sound setup, you can feel the sound design shake your seats and all that.
Well, even past that, if you watch the the opening scene of the second movie, you will see, like, as the dragons fly by doing, like, their game, you will see, like, the camera shake as they fly by. And it makes it, like, it adds to that layer of this feels real.
I love so much just how, like, Toothless moves, too. Like, when he's just, like, walking around with things. Like, if you've ever spent time with a golden retriever or just any type of dog like that, you know what it's like to spend time with Toothless. You can just, like, completely understand it. Because he was obviously inspired by a dog like that. So
I would say more like a cat.
I think they
more like a cat?
Oh, yeah. 100%. It's especially with the eye design and the ears. The ears might have been more dog-like, cat-like. Well, I think the ears had a lot more movement to them and like showed his happy or sad. It was a combination for sure.
Based off of cats, dogs, and horses.
Horses too, yeah.
According to IMDb.
Yeah, I would say horses for the size, possibly. Yeah. There was a lot of thoughtful design going into Toothless, and that's something I'm concerned about for the live action, is how to translate a character like that to be real. It might be another Lion King situation, or maybe they just lean into it and accept that this fictional dragon has these muscles that make him able to smile and make funny faces. I don't see how they can make How to Train Your Dragon with House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones style dragons. They have to be different. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
So I might be throwing a weird curveball example into this one.
Do it. It's for the content.
I'm gonna make an obscure poll here, and that is a 2006 movie that is very much disliked, named Aragon.
That is where you're going. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, not very well liked by fans of the book series that it came from, me being one of them.
So it's not Aragorn.
Nope, Aragon.
Oh, it's
Eragon.
Aragon. Jeremy Irons.
One of the few things I personally feel like the movie did well was the dragon part, was the dragon Saphira. You're wasting your time if you want to watch it. It's not great. Gonna be honest. There's a reason there wasn't a second and a third one made. I feel like they did the dragons of it really, really well.
I'm watching the trailer.
That's my
I can see what you're saying. It is a very How to Train Your Dragon style of movie from what I'm seeing from the trailer.
I think if they do it similar to the way that they did Saphira in Aragon, I think it could work out. They'd have to make some tweaks and changes to it, but I think they could potentially make that do good.
I'm having a seizure from this trailer because they keep doing the 2000s things where it's like on screen black, on screen black, but it's like boom, boom, boom. It's like a heartbeat. I'm like, when darkness falls. Sorry, this is
there's not
a hero. What it's gonna say? Will ride. Oh, get it? Because he didn't say rise. He will ride.
He's gonna ride the dragon.
Comedy.
Wow.
No, that one I'm interested only because it's a 2000s movie, and I kind of like 2000s.
There's not.
No, I do see what you're saying though. Go ahead.
There's not a lot of movies that I hated after seeing them for the first time, but Aragon was definitely one of them. I did not like it at all. I forgot most of it, but I just remember not liking it.
That's funny. Yeah,
it's bad. One of the top, like, you know how when you Google search it, one of the like how it gives you the nice like auto searches people also ask. The very first one is, what made the movie so bad? They're making a TV series out of it with the actual author of the books, so looking forward to that. But that is completely off topic. Anyway, that's my obscure poll. I think if How to Train Your Dragon did their dragons like Aragon movie, I think it could work out.
I think you're right.
And I mean, they are bringing back Gerald Butler to play Stoic, which is pretty cool.
They are?
Yeah.
Yeah, I also have a bone to pick with that because content. No, I don't mind Gerald Butler doing that, but it's similar to, you can definitely compare it to The Rock playing Maui. You can also kind of compare it to James Earl Jones playing Mufasa in the live action Lion King, whereas,
or even Lars Mikkelsen playing Thrawn.
Sure, but I think I got it from a pitch meeting video. I think it was the Lion King pitch meeting video where he said, "Yeah, and we'll bring back James Earl Jones to play his character that he played all those years ago. Oh, and you'll bring back all the other characters who also are perfectly fit for playing their roles? No, just James Earl Jones." So for one, it kind of seems unfair. To another degree, when you're dealing with child actors, then obviously you can't have the 30-year-old who plays Iccup to play a teenage Hiccup. But it just seems unfair to favorite someone, even if he already does a good job, like Butler or The Rock. I don't know. What is Isaac pogging about?
James Earl Jones played Mufasa. I didn't know that.
Oh,
you played him twice.
Oh my gosh. Twice, actually.
I didn't know. Darth Vader is Mufasa?
Wait a minute, James Earl Jones played Darth Vader?
What?
I think that's a whole interesting thing where he's kind of sold his voice to Disney to be able to use it for Darth Vader and for Lion King.
Why was there no "I am your father" reveal in The Lion King? That would have been so...
I am your father.
like the part where he's staring up at the sky with the stars and stuff?
Simba.
I'm gonna go rewatch The Lion King right after we're done
Do
with
it.
this, just to listen to James Earl Jones.
It's worth it. Yeah. Before we're done, I really want Isaac to rant a little bit about the music because I believe somebody picked it in our best soundtracks episode. Somebody picked it for their number top one. Was that you, Zach? That was number two. Maybe it was your number two because we didn't have anyone choose the same thing twice. But yes, it made podium for Zach.
Yes. What was your number one?
Time from Inception.
Oh, your number two was what? Test Drive then?
Test Drive, yeah.
Very first movie, 1,000,000 out of 10. One of the greatest soundtracks ever made, I will argue. And again, there's that video. I don't know if I've talked about it yet in the actual recording of the podcast, but there's that video of why is the intro to How to Train Your Dragon so good. And essentially it describes how it gives us the musical theme of every single important character we meet in the movie in an opening scene. And it gives us a little taste of Test Drive and just the way that James Earl Jones takes the different characters that he has and their musical themes and blends them together. And, for Test Drive, it's a combination of Hiccup and Toothless. he's a musical genius, and it makes it so good. What's your problem, Seth?
Did you just call Powell James Earl Jones?
Oh no! Did I actually just do that?
Yes, you 100% did.
I'm sorry.
His mind
James
is on
Earl
other
Jones
things.
is still on the mind.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Oh my gosh. All right,
Just realized James Earl Jones was Mufasa. Leave him alone, Seth.
This is an
pretty
earth-shattering
groundbreaking.
moment for me. Yeah, jeez. Give me a second. You can dub that over, right? You can
Yeah,
make that work. All
I'll
right,
definitely
do
cut it out.
Yeah, you totally will, I'm sure. Anyway,
Content.
so the way that John Powell, just takes his different characters, the different musical themes of his characters, and splices them together. And honestly, right before we started this, I listened to the entire soundtrack of How to Train Your Dragon 2. I wasn't like it wasn't as good as the first one. The first one, probably for nostalgia reason. Like when the different songs start, I can think of the scene that it's relating to, and it makes me feel that emotion. The second movie, while really good, there's points where like the music will play and I'll be like, this kind of just feels like a filler piece. Like, it's not great. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's still great piece of music. And I would say probably my favorite song from the second movie is Stoic and Volka's song, Dancing in the Dreaming, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I really like that song. It's pretty good. And the third movie, I haven't had the time to listen to the full OST yet, but I was less impressed with the third one than I was the second one. And again, it's probably because he's having to use a lot of the same characters, and so their themes seem old and repetitive, but it's still good music.
I will say, just having watched the second and third one, there aren't as many notable moments with the soundtrack as the first one. I will say, though, the beginning song in the second one, Where No One Goes, I really like that one, too. It kind of turns Test Drive into, like, a song with lyrics, and it's pretty great.
They end the movie with that one, I'm pretty sure, too, which is
they ended with
really
it, too.
Cool.
Yep.
I like that.
I think it was, I don't know if Zach said it, but when we were talking about your number 2 being Test Drive, talking about how it feels like you want to just be on a motorcycle at 80 miles an hour playing that because it has the feeling of speed. And that is the theme. That's the theme of the whole trilogy, and I think it encapsulates that feeling of flying very well, and incredible stuff.
Yeah, I think it does. If I was a pilot, and I'm not, if I was ever a pilot, I would play Test Drive. Like their headphones that they use to talk to people. I'd find a way to rig that up so that every time I take off, I'd have like a cassette inserted of just Test Drive where I could play it. Because, as you said, it gives you that feeling of flying. Like, even as I'm talking about it, I'm hearing it in my head, and it just makes me want... it makes me want to do something. I want to, go run around, or... I don't have a motorcycle, but that sounds like fun.
I said the same thing in the soundtrack episode. Even, like, driving down the highway with it playing is just such a magical moment. I love it so much. I will say it kind of surprised me. What surprised me overall is just how much better the first one is than the other two. Like, I'm not saying the second two are bad by any means, but the first one, maybe it's nostalgia and all that, but I think the first one kind of explores the theme a lot better and more effectively than the other two do.
I think second one does the theming of sacrifice better. Because in the first one, yes, Toothless has to sacrifice his tail, but we don't know him very well at that point, so it doesn't seem like it's a huge loss. Like, we know as an audience it's a huge loss, but it doesn't seem like it at the time when we first see it. Him losing his leg, yes, that's a major loss. I don't think it's as big a loss as losing his father. You could argue maybe the third one also does sacrifice good with all the dragons leaving, but it seems almost cliche because, of course, they're losing stuff.
I think the kind of just this theme of the first one, though, is especially impactful, though, especially under kind of a Christian perspective. Just him, Hiccup, not wanting to live in the way of the world, in a sense, in the way of the world that he knows, but trying to live trying to find a better way of life. And then he finds this, and he kind of lights a spark that, like, turns to a wildfire for all of Berk, and then all of Berk is living in this new way of life. So I think that was a really cool theme to see in the movie.
Yeah, what is that? Romans Romans 12:2, right?
12:2 is do not conform,
Do
isn't
not
it?
conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your heart. You could say,
Oh, yeah.
you could say that was a Romans 12:2 part where he wasn't like, he wanted to be like the people of his world, but he discovered something that changed him, and he no longer wanted to become that. I mean, it gets to the point where he says he doesn't want to fight dragon, which is completely against what his entire culture is and what his own father wants. And just by his own actions, he's able to show the people of his village a different way, a different lifestyle, and they join him in that. It's a great example of how one Christian can lead to a large group of people coming to Christ just by the way that they act.
Final thoughts, Seth?
Oh gosh. Seth is showing us a video, an
Oh, you can't hear
animated
it.
video of...
Wait, you haven't seen this? Oh yeah, because Isaac's not on social media. This has been everywhere on social media.
I thought you were going to play the part where Stoic goes, "For Scotland!"
I might. I want to find it. This is it, Isaac.
Oh, here. Oh gosh! What is that? Like is that the Poke Center theme?
I don't know. Is it?
Yeah, it's something Pokemon, I'm pretty sure. I recognize it from like Diamond and Pearl, I think.
Sorry, I had to get that in there somehow.
That's hilarious. So we've talked about the characters, the themes, the music, of course. And as somebody with a degree in animation, please tell us, how does this movie do in terms of animation?
Actually, really well.
I want the phrase.
As someone with a degree in animation.
Yes!
Got the merch! Why don't you?
You didn't even say it once until the end of the episode.
I think Zach said it for me or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the merch. Why don't you? It holds up really well. When did the first one actually come out?
Well,
It's going to make me feel old.
2010.
Dang it.
Oh.
I was
That was
6.
14
I was
years
7.
ago.
I was 6.
Not saying
Jeez.
2010 didn't have great animation, but I still think the first one could have been released today and no one would bat an eye. By the end, there's a lot of hair in, like, all of the characters' hair utilized. I think that is simulated really well, but the water, especially in the second one, really took it to another level. I remember seeing a video of somebody who was in charge of animating the shot of the Bewilderbeast shot of him coming up out of the water and roaring, and he said he put all the details on the face and made it super, like, a epic shot, and then they just covered it up with water. Just had water spraying everywhere in front of the face and covered up all his work. But that's kind of how animation goes sometimes. But I did not ever, it was never lacking for me. I was thoroughly impressed with the whole thing, and I think it's great style that is on the borderline of stylized, but also looks realistic. Like, there's been this uncanny valley of not only there's been this uncanny valley of the environments look realistic, like Frozen 2, but the characters are super stylized. So that almost creates a disconnect. So I think that How to Train Your Dragon got it well. The style of the environment with the style of the characters.
You're as beautiful as the day I lost you.
That's another thing. Their marriage is very, very wholesome and loving, and just basically picks up right where they left off. And you can see, I think that might have been a tear shed was when they reunited, and Stoic was not Stoic. He was emotional because he found his wife again. That was something.
The dancing and the dreaming song.
Yeah.
I do have one more thing I want to touch on very briefly, and it's kind of animation related. But throughout, especially the second movie and the third movie, it's really cool how the studios aged the character.
Oh, yeah.
You can see how Hiccup is, and it might just be because it's released in later years, so the technology is greater. He just looks like an older character, but not so old that we don't recognize him anymore. We still know who he is. He just looks older. Same thing with Astrid, and especially in the third movie. The way that they're animated, the way that they carry themselves, the way that they look, just makes them look like they've grown up, which is really cool because it feels like they're growing up along with the audience that's watched them.
Absolutely.
Admittedly, again, I was 6 when I watched the first one, but when I watched the third one, I felt like I had grown up with Hiccup. I felt like that whole experience of, like, the village and all of that, I felt like that was, I felt like I had known them because they aged them up the studio aged them up along with me as I continued to watch them. I just think that was really cool.
I do think it's cool. It's not the Stranger Things scenario where the actors grew up way too fast for the production and they're playing characters who are supposed to be way younger than they were. And it's also not Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, the classic 2000s of having actors play characters who were way too young for the actors to be playing. That was an old thing that people were like, oh, we can't use child actors. So, but yeah, now the growing up with the production and alongside people like Isaac here, who great nostalgia and great feelings for like a coming of age story over the course of 3 different movies.
No, but as you said, I'm a sucker. I no doubt will probably watch the live action when it comes out because shut up and take my money.
It is being directed and written by the same guy too, so
Would be good.
This is all I can do. It's all
2025.
yeah.
When was it? March 14th or May 14th?
March 14th, I know,
When
because it's a special
the
day.
movie premieres.
Yeah.
When the movie premieres, I will go watch it. I hope this podcast is still going by this time. Either way, Seth, you will be getting a lovely video call from me detailing how good or bad it is.
With over 60 episodes to go, I think we'll just barely make it to March 14th, 2025.
Okay, good to know.
All right. Sounds good. Let us know how that goes. Isaac, in a year and 2 months, we'll be tuning our ears to be eagerly awaiting your review of the movie. All right. That's all we got. Thank you guys so much for listening. Check out our Discord. Check out our socials. And share this with your friends. That's all I got. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Know that you are loved. God bless.
Loves you.
God loves you.
And
See
we do
ya.
too. And he made you special. And he loves you. Right. Is that trademarked?
Because
I don't know
we
if that
know
phrase is
that
trademarked.
God
We love you guys. Bye.
forever.
Bye.